Hello, and welcome to a special holiday episode of the R&L Revolution Nothing Less show. My name is Annie Day. Today is Thursday, December 26th, and this is the 228th episode. This show is on a mission in line with our name, Revolution Nothing Less, and a whole new and far better world that's possible through making an actual revolution to overthrow this system of capitalism, imperialism, and replace it with a liberating system. We have leadership for this in Bob Avakian, the revolutionary leader and architect of the new communism, a whole new framework for human emancipation. You're going to hear from Bob Avakian directly on today's show about why he says it's dangerous to lead a revolution if you don't have a poetic spirit. And we're going to bring you poetry and passion and heart from the holiday party that was held at Revolution Books in Harlem in New York. We're going to play some of the cultural performances from this event, as well as remarks from Andy Z, one of the hosts of this show and the spokesperson for Revolution Books.
If the rich feed on the work of the poor, then how will the poor eat? I say, burn it all down, begin again. One stable nation, one table. Let no one leave the kitchen hungry.
If I must die, let it bring hope. Let it be a tale.
This is the cold, liberating truth that comes from the warmth of the heart that wants to free ourselves and all of humanity. So thank you for being here, and let's go.
Before we go into the event at Revolution Books, we're going to play an excerpt from the interviews that were done with Bob Avakian on this show in 2022. Not only is this an essential introduction to the new communism, but it's an introduction to who humanity has in Bob Avakian, a leader that is hardcore for revolution, maintaining his broadness of mind and generosity of spirit, his profound curiosity and humor. This is a leader that has dedicated his whole heart and soul, his whole life for decades and decades to ending oppression and exploitation for people here and all over the world. And despite tremendous sacrifice, has never lost his scientific grounding or his soaring vision. If you study human history, you know that leaders like Bob Avakian come along very, very rarely. And urgently, millions of people need to come to know, follow, learn from, debate, and defend this revolutionary voice. And that's why there's a campaign to get Bob Avakian's social media everywhere. And at the back of the show, I'll give you an update on the campaign to raise big funds. So let's watch from the interviews with Bob Avakian.
Well, you've already taken us to what we wanted to end the first interview with you on the show, and by singing, I think, at least 3 times on this show, which has been great, because what we wanted to do is in 2003, you gave a talk that we call the Revolution Talk, and I don't know, hours into it, all of a sudden you burst into song, a Ry Cooder song, Across the Borderline.
Now my voice is hoarse, but I'm going to give this a try. There's a land, so I've been told.
And then later on, a decade later, I guess the band Outer National took that and put it into a song that we've played many times on the show.
There's a land, so I've been told. Every street is paved with gold, and it's just across the borderline.
And then you've also spoken, see, you've taken a lot of things out from what we said. I just want to make sure everybody sees this. We were just talking before about these are 45 records. Yeah. Okay, this is vinyl's not coming back in this form. But look, this is your memoir, From Ike to Mal and Beyond, My Journey from Mainstream America to Revolutionary Communist. But there you are with the record. So, and you just spoke about the influence of the culture, black culture. But we wanted to ask you about this, because you've written and talked about how if you don't have a poetic spirit, or at least a poetic side, it's very dangerous for you to lead a Marxist movement or be the leader of a socialist state. This question of the poetic side, and you've written about, including to people of our, who've not had a formal education, the importance of Shakespeare and how you can understand that. You've spoken some already tonight about the influence of black music on you, but poetry, literature. These are things that have had a big influence on you. So we wanted to ask you two things. One, how did this shape you, who you are? And then more, why does it matter to have a poetic spirit to lead a revolution?
Well, you see, you held up that memoir cover, and you see that tells you what at the time I thought looked cool. So, so you can draw your own conclusions about that. What does it reflect about the times and perhaps about me at the time too? But
well, you missed a whole discussion here last night about the Beach Boys, and then what happened in the move to black culture and all the developments. But
well, I'm sorry I missed it. Sounds good. Sounds interesting. But to get to your question, look, I think human beings need. This is a point that's been made, but it's important to keep coming back to this. Human beings need to be amazed. That's part of what it means to be human. You get amazed when you see an amazing painting or a cultural performance or something someone does in athletics, and you get a certain joy from being amazed at something, especially in a positive way. And this is one element of it. But more generally, human beings have a need for beauty. And beauty comes in many different forms. It comes in nature. And yes, different people do find different things beautiful, but still there's a need for beauty. It comes in nature, it comes in music, it comes in poetry, it comes in literature generally. It comes in many different forms. A sunset and so on and so forth. If the kind of world we're aiming for is not one where that kind of beauty is discounted or, suppressed, but one where the human being's need for that is given much fuller expression. And a lot of that is suppressed in people. Life is so hard for so many people, and things are so bitter that they don't, and they're scuffling so hard they don't even have the chance to enjoy much beauty, though they do find ways even so. So, the kind of world we're aiming for is a world where the human ability to, appreciate beauty in many different forms would be given much fuller expression. And that links up with the question. There's also beauty in the intellectual realm. Look at this, telescope and what it's showing us about the universe. There's beauty in that. There's wonder in that. Isn't that important for human beings to have a full life? And the same when you're trying to solve a problem, not just a political problem, but trying to understand a phenomenon in nature, and then you finally do understand it. It's a very exhilarating experience. The same is true in literature, like you mentioned Shakespeare. Well, a lot of Shakespeare language is archaic. It means it's outdated. It means language that people all would have understood generally at the time, but not all of it, not even most of it. But some of it is language that we no longer use. Most people don't go around saying forsooth and so on and so forth, and there are other expressions that are even, more abstract to people, or, unfamiliar to people now. But there's a lot of beauty in the language of Shakespeare. And let's be clear. There are a lot of dead people who are not white who have also created a lot of beauty in the world, and too much of that has been suppressed. But there are also dead white men who have created a lot of beauty, and we should not be prevented from enjoying that as well. And Shakespeare is one of them. The language is beautiful. As I said in my memoir, I enjoy puns. There are all kinds of puns in Shakespeare. Some of them are better than others. But there are all kinds of humor. There's even malapropisms, which means misusing or a word, saying a word wrong, or I remember one. I think it's in Macbeth, the play Macbeth, which by the way was a favorite of Huey Newton. He used to quote Act 5, Scene 5, Macbeth. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in its petty pace from day to day, etc. But earlier in there's a scene where there's this drunken gatekeeper at one of the castles, and he opens the gate and he starts rambling on, and at one point he says, makes a comparison. He says, but comparisons are odorous. Now, it's actually supposed to be comparisons are odious. Odious means hateful. But he's drunk and he does a malapropism. He says, but after all, comparisons are odorous. Means they stink, you know. So, you know, even things like that are, you know, I get a kick out of it. You know, it's funny. You know, it's a good use of a malapropism. You know, it's a good use of language, you know, and distorting language for the purpose of humor. You know, and different people like different poets, you know, modern poetry from the Romantic period. You know, I happen to like Keats as I was growing up. I found the language very evocative. You know, it made me think about a lot of things, and it also just, it created a certain feeling. Beyond just, you know, what it made me think about, created a certain feeling. You know, bright star, were I as steadfast as thou art. You know, just you're looking at a star and saying, okay, this star is, you know, seems to have a lot of constancy. It's there all the time. You know, would that I could be as firm as that. You know, just, you know, things like that, you know, make you think, make you feel. If you don't have an appreciation for that, then when you turn to politics, you're going to tend to be very dogmatic. And you're going to be very dry, and nobody's going to live in any kind of world that you have anything to do with setting the terms of. At least I certainly wouldn't. And I don't think most people would. So this is what I mean when I say, you know, you don't have to write poetry. That's not my point. But, you know, you have to have an appreciation for beauty in all these different kinds of ways, or else you're not aiming for the kind of society that we need to be aiming for, where human beings can really thrive in the fullest way and in the fullest dimensions.
So again, those were from the interviews that were done on this show with Bob Avakian in 2022, Heart and Soul and Hardcore for Revolution. And you can watch the full set of interviews on this channel. We're now going to play some of the excerpts from the holiday party at Revolution Books, which brought alive some of that spirit. It brought alive the determination that, in the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. We need and we demand a whole new way to live, a fundamentally different system, because this system is rotten and illegitimate. People from all over the world came together to support Revolution Books for an afternoon filled with defiant and uplifting culture and a vision of how humanity could live based on the new communism that Bob Avakian has developed. Andy Z issued a challenge to step into the urgent fight to defeat this fascism and into the revolution. In the order you're going to see, we're going to play Las Lloronas of Gaza. These are Colombian women who have said of their work that in every note of a Colombian alabao, we weave the memory and pain of our people with the strength of the Palestinian resistance. The poet Mahogany L. Brown is a Kennedy Center's Next 50 Fellow. She's a writer, playwright, organizer, and educator, and is the inaugural poet in residence at Lincoln Center in New York. Brad Walrond is a poet, author, and conceptual performance artist. He was an active participant in the Black arts movement in New York in the 1990s and is the author of Everywhere Alien. Jamel Mims is an African-American rapper, multimedia artist, and a revolutionary based in New York. He's also known as the bilingual storyteller MC Tingbudong. Jamel has been active with the REVCOM Corps for the Emancipation of Humanity. And Andy Z is a host of this show and spokesperson for Revolution Books. He's a follower of Bob Avakian and an advocate for the new communism. So let's watch.
Y sus bolsillos llenaron. Hoy reclamamos justicia por medio de nuestro canto. Hoy reclamamos justicia por medio de nuestro canto. Señores millonarios, mi tierra no es su patio. ella vida sembramos.
Nuestra y de nuestros ancestros, en ella vida sembramos.
So when I'm thinking about the reason that Revolution Books is one of my favorite spaces, I'm thinking about the people who put themselves in harm's way for our literary liberation, for our everyday freedoms. And as someone who, I wasn't always a banned book author, but I was told that was good. And you're like, oh, that's great. Book sales are awesome. And then you get the death threats. And you're like, oh, is that great? Is that awesome? And why does my success have to come so closely, to death? So this one's for them. Because I decided if I'm getting death threats over a kid's book, I'm doing it right. That was good. If you mad, I'm talking to the children about the truth, then we got to keep talking to the kids because you're gone. But hopefully we can save them before it's too late.
You're doing it right.
Thank you, friend. Don't nobody want no smoke. Don't nobody want the bars melted. Don't nobody want the honorable throne stone riddled. Don't nobody want that kind of freedom. I said, don't nobody want smoke except the oppressed, the misunderstood, the enslaved, except the disregarded, the forgotten, the economically alienated, the freedom fighters, except the abolitionists. It's a novel and story, including an actual short story from a young person who is incarcerated, as I come from a family impacted heavily by incarceration. And my cousin was locked up, young cousin locked up during COVID and the fear there, right? So I will read the last two, which comes from Maceo Craig Sr., who is a political activist and locked up in Rikers. And this is Hope is an Act of Liberation. So it's his speech to the young man who was in the cell by himself, who's also surviving not just COVID, but surviving the foster care system, which we know can also be a pipeline to prison. When you dream, we all find a way for rich colors and sounds to exist. When you dream, we all have a blueprint for flying. Police brutality and mass incarceration should be a mirage, a long ago nightmare, not a means to make money off the pain, addiction, and impoverishment of a people. I know you believe that is a tall order. Sounds more like too many politics and not enough people. I agree. Now listen here. I am not in the business of politics, but I am in the business of helping people. I am in the business of watching all of our children prosper and grow. All of our children, Black, Hispanic, and Latin Americas, Alaska Natives, Chinese, Arab, Asian Americans, Indians and Native Americans, Africans, Pakistanis, Vietnamese, Filipinos, Cubans, and whites. All of our children deserve a brighter horizon than the one we promised at the end of some mythical golden road. This country can hold all of us firmly. This country can hold us all. Now, if you ask my wife Simone, she will say there are food deserts that should be flooded with fresh vegetables and fruit. She will say that after school childcare should be readily available for all. She would say breakfast and healthy school lunches should be free of charge to any of our children in need. She would argue for useful and new books for each student in every class and would also say, I am talking your ears off. She is the most brilliant woman I know. So I will be brief and leave you with this. We can hope the wealthy hear our cries, or we can make them listen. If you drive a bus, stop. If you operate a train, stop. If you provide for the wealthy and you are owed for your labor but only have promises to show for it in the form of past due notices, stop. We will not wait for them to give us what is rightfully ours. We will take it. If the rich feed on the work of the poor, then how will the poor eat? I say, burn it all down. Begin again. One stable nation, one table. Let no one leave the kitchen hungry.
There's a way in which this moment offers an opportunity to see what condition we are in, the real peril that we're in. So even folks who are generally sympathetic to the message of revolution, the message of social change, the there's a way in which so many of us don't think the worst, right? And there's something about this moment that kind of tells a lot of people, this could be close, right? And if that's the case, what are we gonna do about it, right? This piece is called How to Describe a Slave Ship in 3 Minutes or Less. Imagine a slave ship as a royal museum, happy at sea, while Africa's remains center at the back of the bus, remembering nothing besides possession. Imagine every ship is a corporation. Imagine every corporation got a Jones for whitewash. Imagine a brand is the cleanest, most effective form of forgetting which color does what to whom after all the dirty minerals spit bath. Imagine the West is one word, chronicles the advent of cognitive dissonance, while Eckhart Tolle's New Age wipes space-time white as snow, rare earths warm just how you like it, a wet womb, a blank check, all borders, no boundaries, gateway drugs, read better as constitutions, genocide, obviously, America's first opioid crisis. Uncontrolled substances take the name Harriet. Controlled substances grandfathered in. How did we all get here without a moral compass? Where are we? That's right, a slave ship. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This is from Rifat Alarer. And this is published in the collection of poetry called If I Must Die, with the poem from the same name. And just for some background, Rifat Alarer was a poet, a prolific poet who was killed in Gaza City on December 6th by an Israeli airstrike, along with several relatives and young children. The first publication of this book is already sold out, but you can find it here at Revolution Books, going along with this kind of theme of, banned literature, and along with it, banned lives. So this is If I Must Die by Rifat Alarer. If I must die, you must live, to tell my story, to sell my things, to buy a piece of cloth and some strings. Make it white with a long tail, so that a child somewhere in Gaza, while looking at heaven in the eye, awaiting his dad who left in a blaze, and bid no one farewell, not even to his flesh, not even to himself, sees the kite, my kite you made, flying up above, and thinks for a moment an angel is there, bringing back love. If I must die, let it bring hope. Let it be a tale.
All right, we got the sound in order now, but let me ask you this. Are you fired up? Yeah. Did you feel the poets here? Do you find what they spoke of tolerable? While the words are beautiful, what they described was horrific. And what I'm here to tell you about, it doesn't need to be that way. But y'all have a role to play in that, and a role to play right now. So I am very glad to be back in New York for this weekend and to speak here at Revolution Books. And you give yourselves a hand, too, for being here. Yeah. I don't think that all of us really fully know how much it matters that we are here today. coming to the end of 2024 and going into 2025. The end of a year that saw genocide of unspeakable proportions carried out by our government, or with the support and guidance and funds of our government in Gaza. And there's been genocides all over the world, especially in Ethiopia. Horrific. So what I want to do today is, first off, salute Revolution Books. I want to salute the artists who did an incredible procession through the store, and more important, or just as important, they're doing it in the streets to support the people of Gaza and of Palestine more broadly. I want to salute Brad and Mahogany, so give them all a hand. And I want to salute Revolution Books, and I want to salute Bob Avakian, the revolutionary leader on who this store is based, on the work that he's done, makes it possible to understand the situation that we face today and how we could get free. And that's going to require all of you. And let's not mince words or not speak falsely now. We are in a very perilous situation in the world today. The danger, past the tipping point, of possibly the extinction of the human species or life as we know it due to the devastation of the environment that is sitting right here. Yes, the people you put hope, some, maybe not everybody here, but that people put their hope in the Democrats. Drill, baby, drill is what they did too. Set records, fracking. And then there's the climate deniers and the health deniers who are coming into power, the fascists. And it's an existential crisis, as I said, around the environment, and is an existential crisis around the danger of nuclear war. Just the last few weeks, a missile was fired from Russia, a missile that has the potential to be devastating to humanity. And in response to what? In response to missiles being fired into the territory of Russia. We face a serious challenge. The world is being torn asunder right now. Fascism is coming to power and control of all branches of this government. A fascism, a MAGA Trumpian fascism, a fascism that will be a qualitative change in how this oppressive system has been ruled. An open, undisguised dictatorship, and what has been a dictatorship all along. And as I said, I want to give a salute, and I think this is also to be a toast, so if you have something to toast, you can toast too. To the bookstore, Revolution Books, and to Bob Avakian. And I want to talk about why that's so. Because without a way out of the madness, without a way to get free from all this, then it doesn't just go on, which it will, if they don't destroy the planet first, if they don't destroy humanity first, if they don't rob people of any dignity at all. And there is a whole other way we could be living. And this is what's really important. But that is going to require a fight, as our poet said. Brad spoke of peril. This is a time of great peril. But what's hidden from you is it's also a time of possibility. It's also a time of potential to get this monster of a system off the backs of people here and around the world, so no longer are people dominated and destroyed by a system that discriminates against them for the color of their skin, for their nationality, for their gender. A system that subordinates people to each other and sets everyone and everything against each other. And that system is the capitalist imperialist system. And that's what's at the root of all the problems we face. And there is a way out of the madness. There is a way to a new future. And that has been charted by the revolutionary leader, Bob Avakian. And I want to encourage you, there are social media messages coming from Bob Avakian that describe the situation we face and the way out of this, what we need to do, and how we're going to get free. And when you think about what is up for humanity right now, what is really sitting in front of us. And very urgently with the coming to power of this fascist regime. And of course, they're already acting as if they are in power, which would give you some sense of this is not a repeat of 2017 to 2020. This is not, part two, the pathetic sequel to the first movie. This is a qualitative change. And Bob Avakian has said, we can no longer afford to allow these imperialists to determine the destiny of humanity, to dominate the world and determine the destiny of humanity. But it is a scientific fact that it is possible to bring about a whole radically new world that overcomes all forms of oppression and exploitation. And no, this isn't heaven on earth. This is a humongous struggle that we have to wage right now to get to that point. And then there's a blueprint for how we could really go to work in overcoming everything that holds us down. All forms of oppression, all forms of exploitation. I could be prone to really going into this in depth, but that we can do informally. And you need to get into some of the works of Bob Avakian, including the strategy, building up the basis to go for the whole thing with a real chance to win, the broadsheet that Molly held up before. We need and we demand a fundamentally different way to live, a fundamentally different system. This is possible. This is possible. But here's the thing, it's not possible without you. We have the leadership we need. The actual leadership, the person of Bob Avakian, who's really, I just want to commend again, I'm going to take a little detour here, but it's not really a detour because it's actually at the heart of the point. For people to watch these interviews that Sansara Taylor and I did with Bob Avakian. Because what you see in these interviews is somebody with heart and soul for humanity, who understands to be that way for humanity, you have to be hardcore for revolution. And that's the challenge that I want to put to all of you. This is not a time, as he said, for people to be demoralized and despondent and despairing and all this, looking in the mirror and feeling really bad. This is a time that has to be seized, and it can be. But that requires you. This is a time that requires determination. This is a time that requires courage. And we need the poems, and we need the songs, and we need the paintings that inspire us to that courage. But we need more than that. We need an understanding of how we could actually win, how we would create a new society. If you experience oppression, if you feel, as they carried the young singers from Colombia, the babies, the symbols of the babies, you can feel that. And if you've experienced that, you know what that feels like. You know you can imagine what happens, but you don't know what caused it. For that, you need a scientific approach to understand reality. You could say, I want to be free. But to be free, you've got to be organized. You've got to be disciplined. You've got to be in a movement that's going to actually change the world. This is the time for that now. Not next week, not after New Year's, not the month after that. It has to start tonight. Tonight. You need to get with and work with Revolution Books if that's what you want to do. If you want to get on the front lines of bringing about a new world, you've got to get with the REVCOM Corps for the emancipation of humanity. This is where you need to be. Because we have some serious stuff in front of us, and we don't have a lot of time to do this in two senses. One, there is a fascist regime coming. They are moving. They are telling you right now what they're going to do. They put it in writing. In Project 25, Trump has told you over and over again, he's appointed a reactionary, fascist cabal of lunatics who are going to kill all of us. Mahogany did a poem about COVID. Well, here's an idea. Let's get rid of vaccines. Let's get rid of science. Maybe we could use a little bit of polio and measles to spice up life. This is what's coming. on the one end of things. But it's more than that. You're actually talking about they're changing the rules of the game. And look, fascism is a different form of rule of the same system we've been living in. The books on either side of you, these tell of the crimes of this system that was founded on the system of capitalism and slavery, exploitative, oppressive systems. And to pave the way for that, there was a genocide of the native people. And this proclivity to genocide, to dominate the world, still exists today in this country. Its time can be up. But again, I'm going to say this to you, and it's good news. There's a way out of the madness. If there wasn't good news, then, we could just say, hey, well, what can we do? But there's good news. There's a strategy. There's a vision of the new society. And there's all of you. But you need to get involved. There's a lot of different ways for people to do that, but you need to get involved in bringing this system down. And our first step, our most urgent step right now, while we're preparing for the time when we could actually make a revolution, we say, in the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. And that's not just a stand. That's not just because it sounds good or because it feels good and because it puts us on the right side of what's going on. It's something that has to be actualized. It's something that has to be achieved. And that's going to take a hell of a struggle. And I will say for the Revcoms and for the Revcom Corps, well, even I'm not a spokesperson of it, but for the RNL show, that we're not kidding about this. We are out to unite extremely broadly with all kinds of people to create a societal crisis of millions of people, to make it impossible for these motherfucking fascists to rule another fucking day. And if we don't do that, it's at the peril not just of us in this room and the people here, it's at the peril of humanity. You have to understand that there come times in history when you're called upon to rise up and to do what needs to be done and to not be wallowing and taking care of me. Anybody who wants to in the break can talk to me about a half dozen to a dozen movies that will tell you what happened to the people in Germany and in Italy who thought they could just get along and keep their families safe. It doesn't work that way. There come times in history when things get thrown up, and this is such a time. But again, and I'm saying this a number of times because I really want you to understand what Bob Avakian is saying by going to listen to him in the social media and to read it, but to hear me bring that basic message right now that we refuse to accept a fascist America. And we need to make that real, and that requires all of you. And as part of doing that, in relationship to doing that, you need to get into Bob Avakian and get with the Revcom Corps, because in that struggle, there could be the possibility where there's a societal crisis of such dimensions that millions of people learn about the Constitution for a new socialist republic in North America and are comparing a system that gave rise to this creature, Trump, and the fascism he represents, and say, fuck that. That's what kind of system gives rise to a leadership like that? That could not be a good system. People would look back in history and say, what the fuck were those people thinking? How could they possibly do that? Well, it was a system that spawned it. And then you start reading the history and seeing genocide after genocide, war after war, political prisoners. Do you know how many years in U.S. history the U.S. invaded a country or staged a coup or manipulated an election? Every year since its founding. That's the answer to that question. This system, as we also say, is thoroughly rotten and illegitimate. And that's why we need and we demand a whole different way to live. A whole different way to live. Nothing in common with this system. And a fundamentally different system. And that is going to be an amazing struggle. And so, let me just say one more thing about Bob Avakian. You know, some of us are young enough to remember when socialism actually existed in the world 40, 50 years ago. And it was an amazing thing in the Soviet Union in the early days, the first decades, China up until Mao died in 1976. And there was a sense that there's a different future that's possible, and these people are fighting for it. But those revolutions were defeated a long time ago. And ever since then, people have been told that there's no alternative. This is the best system there is, or at least it's the only system, so you might as well try to make it better or get by within it. And here's the problem. For as great as those revolutions were, they didn't have a way out of to really get to where they needed to go. There were flaws in it, as it will be in any society that knew a new system. And Bob Avakian, over decades, has gone to work on this, to understand where did we go wrong, what were the problems of it. And he didn't just, as he's worked on this, he didn't just enumerate this thing and that thing and this thing and that thing. As he was working on this, a different vision, a different scientific approach emerged. And that's what you're getting in here. A whole different way to understand the world as it actually is and how it could be transformed and changed to bring about a far better world that could actually get to a new society that understands the complexities of trying to fundamentally, just think about two things here. Imagine a society that actually provided for, and this was in one of the poems, I think it was in Mahogany's poem, decent housing, decent health care, food, shelter, work, play, creativity. Imagine what that would be. And to get there is a very complicated process. But there is now a blueprint for how we would work our way through that, how we would fight for that. So there really is a situation where, there was the theory of revolution and communism before Bob Avakian, and now there's a theory we need, the theory we have to get humanity free. And you find that at this store. And it is enriched by all the thousands of books in here that bring to you the reality of life and the imagined world in poetry, theater scripts, in novels, all of this. But all of this has to be synthesized in a way that we could do what? Free the spirit from its cell. Free people from the oppression of millennia of oppression. So with that, I've taken the time rather to bring this message to you, because without it, we will have had a great day at Revolution Books. But the world will stay as it is. But actually, as I said, it really won't, because it's careening off a cliff. But we have what it takes to stop that. And more than stop that, we have what it takes to free us and to free all of humanity here and all over the world, overcoming all the divisions, the things that divide us around gender, race, nationality, between those who work with their hands and those who work with their minds. Just think of what we could do if we were free of this system and if we worked together to do that. Yes, worked and sacrificed together. So with that, now, I know I brought some heavy shit to you, but this is the liberating shit. This is the cold, liberating truth that comes from the warmth of the heart that wants to free ourselves and all of humanity. So thank you for being here, and let's go.
Before we close out the last episode of 2024, I want to invite you to donate to the year-end drive to raise $50,000 to get the revolutionary voice, vision, and leadership of Bob Avakian through his social media, @BobAvakianOfficial, reaching and reverberating throughout society. As we're filming today's show, we've raised $41,326 toward the $50,000 goal, and I am thrilled to announce a $2,000 matching challenge. These are funds that were pulled together from a group of people, including a parent whose unarmed child was murdered by the police, 10 members of a single family, and a disabled person on Social Security. Pulling their funds together, they will match your donations up to $2,000 to get Bob Avakian Official everywhere. One of them said this: Bob Avakian has the scientifically based and real solution of bringing down this oppressive system of greed. Capitalism has to be eliminated. Everywhere I go, I have conversations with people who want out of this oppressive system and are looking for a solution. I am a disabled person on a pension and Social Security with a small income. But if I can donate, you can too, to give a real boost to getting people of all walks of life into a mass movement for change that is so necessary for our survival. So thank you to this generous group of donors, and now it's on you to meet their match. Anything you give now, up to $2,000, will be doubled. And right now, as we close out 2024, donate so that humanity has a future. We know that 2025 holds real danger and darkness, but your donation is needed so that people know that there is a way out of the madness, so that people know there is a strategy for an actual revolution, so that people get to hear Bob Avakian through his social media, and that they get to know the scientific vision, strategy, and method to fight for a whole new system. And that system is laid out in the Constitution for the new socialist republic in North America, which you can read at revcom.us. Look, you are being hammered with the notion that this nightmare of a system is the best of all possible worlds. You are told constantly that the best you can do is to go for self or just try to do a little bit of good for a few people around you. Well, Bob Avakian's leadership, the new synthesis of communism that he has developed, shatters that lie. This is the scientifically grounded hope that millions need now. And there is nothing more important you can donate to, raise funds for, and be part of spreading. So with that, I want to thank the crew of this show. Put a comment in the comment section below. Support and spread this show. If you're not already, become a Patreon to support this show at patreon.com/therevcoms. And we will see you next year with our sights raised, unabashed and unafraid, with righteous anger and revolutionary determination.